Welcome back to another draft preview. Today we're going to be talking Baltimore Ravens with Burner Bruh, aka Hunter. And we're going to get started by looking at the Ravens depth chart today before we get into a mock draft later on. And first we're going to start with the offensive side of the ball. At quarterback, obviously we all know the MVP himself, Lamar Jackson, who is probably going to be playing under a new contract, maybe coming into the new season, depending on what the Ravens do with that. It's been a controversy the entire offseason if they're going to pay him or not. I think they'd be dumb to let him go, as he's a former MVP who's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league the past 3 or 4 years when healthy. Tyler Huntley is a good backup. He's had his times where he shined and then times where he's played and done very badly. Then running back, you have obviously J.K. Dobbins coming off the ACL. When healthy, very good running back. Gus Edwards been there for a pretty long time. Justice Hill, same thing. Just a backup depth at running back, which is pretty good. The wide receiver position, they brought in Odell and Nelson Aguilar to start the year. The wide receiver core is still very thin with Rashad Bateman, Beckham, Duvernay, Aguilar, Prochet, and Wallace. I know a bunch of Ravens fans don't like James Prochet. Talon Wallace has a ton of potential, but now bringing in Beckham and Aguilar, you're kind of pushing him to a position where he's not going to be anything at all. At the tight end position, you have Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. Two guys where you have one tight end who's one of the better ones in the league. And then Likely, when he does get the chance to play more often, I mean, he's got a chance to develop into something in this league. Charlie Collier, kind of the same thing. He'll be more of a backup tight end in his career. Obviously, a fullback, one of the better fullbacks in the league, in Patrick Card, who's been a long-term Raven. And then obviously the O-line with Ronnie Stanley, Ben Cleveland, Tyler Linderbaum, Kevin Zeitler, and Morgan Moses. It's a pretty good O-line. Maybe you want to upgrade at right tackle. But, I mean, for the most part, I'd say solid 1 through 5. They do need some depth pieces, though, in this draft, which they're probably going to have to look at drafting. All right, now let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. We're going to start with that D-line with Dafia Owe, Justin Matabuke. I mean, that's 2 good edge rushers coming out the side. I don't really care for Justin Matabuke. I mean, he hasn't really turned in anything coming out of college. The nose tackle position, very weak. Michael Pierce, Travis Jones is a guy to watch out for. Brent Urban, he's had his ups and downs, was with the Cowboys for a few years, and the Bears didn't really work out either. DT is probably something they're going to want to address and probably upgrade. Linebacker, though, linebacker is solid with Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen, Tyus Bowers, and then obviously second-year player David Ojabo, who didn't really play a lot last year because of injury, but that is a solid 4, and eventually Ojabo will take a starting job. And then in the secondary, Marlon Humphrey, obviously one of the better corners in the league. Kind of had a down year last year to some Ravens fans' expectations, but nothing too bad. And then Brandon Stevens, you probably want to upgrade your CB2 there. And even if you don't, you definitely want to add more depth because the rest of their DB core is not very good. Daryl Worley, Trayvon Merlin, both guys who played for the Cowboys last year, haven't really done anything in their stints there. Mullen was a bust when he got drafted by the Raiders. And then obviously at safety, Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton, 2 really, really good players. Marcus Williams coming over from the Saints last year, and then Kyle Hamilton was a rookie last year. Didn't really play much, but you might want to add more depth in that secondary at the safety position. But the starter positions, you don't need a starter. Those are 2 of the best safeties in the league when they play together. All right, so now we're going to be getting into a Baltimore Ravens mock draft. And the Ravens don't really have a lot of picks in this draft, and they do have a pretty good amount of needs. I think corner, wide receiver, and edge rushers could be their main 3 that they need to address. Maybe you want to trade up if you're the Ravens to get one of the prime edge rushers, but I doubt they do that knowing their draft history. But let's get started and see what falls to us at 23. Pretty interesting fall here with what they have on the board. Bijan is not a guy they would be needing with J.K. Dobbins against Edwards. Brian Breesy is a guy they could look to bring in. However, I think if you're the Ravens, you're probably looking at Quentin Johnston, Derek Hall, and Cam Smith here. And when it comes down to it with the Ravens, wide receiver is a need. However, adding Odell and Aguilar is 2 really good adds with Duvernay and obviously Bateman there already. So I think you're going to pass on Quentin Johnston here, and you're probably going to go Cam Smith start over Brandon Stevens. Coming out year 1, Cam Smith, you're going to need him to be a starter. South Carolina just keeps producing very good, very, very good DBs, and Cam Smith is just one of the guys that falls in that tier. So if you're the Ravens, you get your CB2 early on in round 1. But what sucks is that you only have 1 day 2 pick. So if you're looking here on the board, I don't think you're looking at adding another corner as nice as it would be. Maybe you want to take a shot on Hendon Hooker if you end up trading Lamar after the draft, but I just don't think it's worth it here either. Linebacker you don't need. Safety, it would be nice to add depth, but I don't think you would be looking to add depth on this day pick. So I think you're probably looking at either Xavier Hutchinson or Rashee Rice in this spot. And it really just comes down to preference. As nice as Rashee Rice is at SMU, I think the Ravens would rather Xavier Hutchinson. Just more of a bigger body receiver who would fit that system better than Rashee Rice would. And then here you go with the starting of 3 day 3 picks for the Ravens. At this position, you're kind of just looking at adding more depth as well. Not a whole lot on the board that you would like for the Ravens. Still don't think you go linebacker. I do think they could go corner here to add more depth on that secondary, which is what I'm having to do. And I'm going to take them Eli Ricks, corner out of Alabama, who has had an interesting career in college. He was once ruled a top 25 pick in last year's draft, but didn't even enter because his stock just kept falling. Coming into this year, people thought he'd be an early day 2 pick. Once again, stock kept falling, and now he's just listed as a day 3 pick. So the Ravens get 2 corners to start this draft, really to just keep adding depth. So in this position, and round 5, you're just really about adding more depth, and that's when you take Nick Herbert, edge rusher out of Wisconsin. Big body edge rusher to add more depth because they are very thin. And then once again here, with your last 201 pick, it's just a shot in the dark. And in this position, I would like them taking DJ Johnson out of Oregon, just another big body depth chart piece. Maybe he becomes something for the Ravens, maybe he doesn't. But I mean, they just need that badly with them only having 3 edge rushers on the current roster, even though they run a 3-4. So I mean, if you're the Ravens, you're sitting back in this draft thinking, what's the bigger need? Round 1, wide receiver or corner, depending on who falls to you, whether it's JSN, Addison, Cam Smith, maybe if Joey Porter slips and falls to you at 23 somehow. It'll be interesting to see what the Ravens go. But the number one priority this rest of this offseason should be to sign Lamar to a future deal, because without Lamar, this team is going to fail this year. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe.